Hello, beautiful people. Thank you so much for joining this space once more. My name is Josiah Golson. I am a visual artist, a writer, a recovering lawyer, and I'm based in Chattanooga, Tennessee. This activity, its name is kind of evolved since for the past 24 hours since I first started it, but right now, let's just call it Beyond the Black Square. And a part of my work as an artist is through this program called the 800 Collective that you can find on Instagram at 800 Collective. And the work is basically about using art as a means of civic engagement and social dialogue, which is done beautifully throughout so many cities and communities by so many amazing people. The way I came into the work was specifically thinking about it while going through law school and trying to imagine what it would be like to foster the type of dialogues and discussions in our civic spaces, but through creative ways instead of just, your typical town halls or your spaces that are often very contrived and are pretty exclusive. So speaking of those types of activities, tonight's activity is basically inspired by all of the communication that I saw concerning the Black Square. And personally, I felt that it was as important and as beautiful and as critical as it is to be unified in our voices. It's important to be as intentional as possible in that unification and in that speaking and in the action. And if the work just results in just a post or a story that fades away and becomes yesterday's news or yesterday's thing or yesterday's trend, then what are we doing? So this activity is especially important to me to share with those of you, not only those of you that are always in the work and that are in the communities and they're marching and they're protesting or supporting the individuals there are legally and with resources, but to those of you that may be frankly totally new to this, where you've always been aware of the importance of racial justice and the tragedy of our history, but that you don't really know what the next step is to engage. So we're going to imagine that black square is a blank canvas on which we'll put action steps and just use it to brainstorm and really think about what our roles are in that work. So for the supplies, all that you need, and mind you, you don't have to do this activity live. If you want to just take it in and see me in the process and then revisit it because I'll post it later and take your time with it, that's beautiful. I absolutely encourage that. So you can be as intentional as possible. But those supplies are simply just a piece of paper, a white piece of paper. I'm using a square. You don't have to use a square. It can be whatever shape you like and whatever specific pound or form you like. A black piece of paper. Again, I'm using some drawing paper, a black square. It can be construction paper. It can be a blank sheet that you actually color black and then use a white medium over. And then preferably like a pen or pencil of blue or black ink. I really love these graphic one pens because I use them a lot in my drawings, like the one behind me. And then finally, a white medium, something whether it's your kid's crayon or a colored pencil or a white marker even. The first thing we're going to do is take this piece of paper and imagine it as a map. This is going to represent our map. And it's a map representing kind of our being, our essence, our life. And it's going to be a very simple map. We're only going to make 3 marks on this map. And with each mark, I'm going to run through the activity a little faster than you might want to. So take your time as you're doing it and when you do it. For the first mark on the map, for our first location of sorts, what I'd like you to do is draw, symbolize, or in some way kind of recreate a mark that represents a person important to you, a person that's special in your life, someone that you truly have learned to empathize with. That can be a parent, that can be a loved one, that can be a friend. It doesn't matter. And you're not worrying about painting a specific portrait. You don't need any artistic expertise for this. Just make a mark that represents that person. So I'm going to do that right now. All right, so I'm drawing my person, and I'm kind of just making a quick little profile portrait of them. And so it's kind of almost like a, I don't know, I may need to do a little more work before I'd actually show this to the person. But what I drew is just this beautiful being with a bunch of hair representing my younger sister, who I dearly love, who I continue to learn so much from, and who's really taught me an an incredible amount of things about how to lead a life for myself. So she's a true inspiration. So this is my person on my on my map. The next thing, I like you to just draw a form of media, something that represents a source or a whether it be a book or a TV show, a film, a movie, a, an artist, a musician, some type of thing that's very close to your heart that you always return to. And so what I'm drawing is actually a symbol that's going to represent a book here. So what I wrote and what I symbolize is a book based on this beautiful memoir by this musician named Patti Smith called Just Kids, about an incredible relationship she had with and a friendship she had with the photographer Robert Mapplethorpe. And it's a beautiful story about, you know, the pursuit of art and beauty and the struggle of making a living in that pursuit. And so that's a book I regularly read. Like I just go back to over and over as inspiration. The last part of your map is going to be a verb, something you do regularly, and you can draw, symbolize, or in any way you like, make a mark that just represents something you do, especially if it's a certain hobby or something that you may have been doing all your life, or you may have taken up since the outbreak of the pandemic we're enduring, and but whatever it is, let it be an action or activity that sustains you. And for me, that's writing. I've always been writing. I've always used it to try to figure out the world. I've always used it to try to figure out myself and figure out others. And even when I can't figure out anything, I write about not figuring it out because it's just something that sustains me. So that's my map. The map comprises of someone I care about, someone dear to me, a form of media that's really important to me, and one of my favorite books, and then an action I do, a verb that I do, writing. Now, let's flip it to where we think about the black square. If your map were now like a constellation where it's an opportunity to think about how you can exist and what's important in your world that values and recognizes Black life, what do those things look like at that point in your life? How do you look at the world then? What do you cherish? What do you hold? This time, we're going to draw 3 shapes that will represent your constellation. So I'll provide you the shapes. You don't have to worry about coming up with the images from scratch, like for your map. First, you're going to draw a square. So I'm just going to draw a simple square. Boom. That was totally painless, right? Next, I would like for you to draw a triangle. Whether it's the specific geometric kind of triangle, that's totally up to you. Go with what you feel, as long as it's something that you can recognize and it suits you. So I'm going to draw a triangle. And there we have it. And then finally, I'd like for you to draw a heart, as big or as small as you like. Interpret the line or the shape in whichever way you like. Draw that heart for you, and as long as it represents what a heart is to you, that's totally sufficient. So I'm going to draw a heart now. So now our black square is no longer just a blank black square. It's no longer just a blackout. We're starting to think of some images. Put we're starting to put some thought into it. What happens? What is the meaning of that black square? Because so many times we equate blackness with the absence of things, or blackness with the loss of things, or blackness with the death of things, that we confuse that with the blackness of the individuals whose lives we care so much about. And as a black person, I can tell you, we are not abstractions. We are not just symbols. We're living, breathing souls. And it's important in the work to support this community and to support us and to speak up for us as an ally, to recognize that. Lorraine Hansberry said, the specific is universal. If we want to have a universal, powerful message in communicating that Black Lives Matter, we need to be specific about the Black lives that we want to uplift and that we want to see and that we want to not cast darkness over in a blackout of communication, but shed light on. And so now this is the work that I leave you to for the rest of the activity. On your own time, and truly take your time and be intentional, think about the square as a Black voice that you like to listen to through music or through reading or through cinema. The same way I adored Just Kids from Patti Smith, who is a Black voice that I can regularly read or return to or find. And what work can I do to look up the resources of those books at my local library or the bookstore or online? Next, the triangle, the sturdy, beautiful, direct shape. Let that represent an action, be it from the spectrum of supporting bail funds or supporting a local Black-owned restaurant or business in your neighborhood or area, or to engaging with a family member or a friend who you may have heard say racist things or who doesn't understand the importance of this moment. Let it be an opportunity to communicate that importance with them. And finally, the Black heart. Let that represent an individual in your life who is Black, not as a token individual, but someone who you want to hold in your heart as you're trying to do these first two actions. And when you then learn to engage with them, let the actions that you're taking and the literature that you're taking in influence that, and be patient with their receiving of that as well. And in doing that, it's not going to be perfect. It's going to take time, but it'll certainly be more than just your work being a Black square of blankness. I hope that this activity serves you. I hope to do several more. You can learn more about my work at josiahgolson.com and at 800collective.com. And please stay engaged. Please keep doing the work. Please be persistent and patient and take in your power. And I'll be in touch with you soon. Bless you.